It's an honor and a privilege to present the annual State of the City address to all of you. I know that the last 12 months have been very, very trying, and I'd like to, first of all, thank the Punta Gorda Chamber for all of their efforts to keep things moving in the city, and to all of the local businesses who have persevered through the last 12 months with COVID, and we certainly hope that 2021 is going to be a better year for all of us. So John has already introduced you to all of our council members, and so we're very pleased to have all of them with us today. We have a very collegial board, and very happy that we have such a great group of people to work with each other on City Council. And of course, one of the things that we did last year, one of our major projects last year, was the evolution of a new city manager. So Howard Koenig had been with us for 15 plus years, and we had the great task of going through over 50 resumes and interviewing candidates, and we ended up selecting Greg Murray as our city manager, and he has jumped into the seat without batting an eyelash. We never missed a beat, and we had a very seamless transition, so we're very fortunate to have Greg with us. We'll start off by talking a little bit about our budget and how we come about picking the millage rate and moving the budget forward every year. When you compare our tax base to other communities around us, we have a relatively low tax rate compared to all the other communities in Southwest Florida. Our tax rate includes a whole lot of things, and when you compare apples to apples, which is what this chart is, we're talking about debt service, we're talking about drainage and stormwater improvements, fire services, police services, water and sewer, and property taxes all in one. And if you take this chart on a basis of a $250,000 value home, you can see where we fall in the chart. We're number 3 in Southwest Florida. So that's a very big testament to the City Council and the city staff maintaining the expenditures every year and staying within our budget. And it's a very, very long process that we work on the entire year. We've already started working on the budget that will start on October 1st. Our fiscal year starts October 1st. So we have already started the process of looking at what we're going to have to do for the next year. Our millage rate for the second year in a row, I'm happy to say we kept the millage rate the same, and it is 3.4337 mils. If you look at all the other items that are listed under the millage rate, those are all additional programs that we have in our budget that are all funded by additional funds beyond property taxes. So if all of those funds were to be included in the millage rate, we'd be looking at a millage rate of 5.1415. Don't want to have that happen because it would mean a lot more property taxes for the average homeowner. So our reserve fund, which is a nationally recommended thing that all municipalities do, is to keep funds in reserve for an emergency situation. The national recommended average is 16.7%, and right now we are at 9%, and we are increasing that each year by 0.5%. And you'll also see on the side there is a $120,000 post there. We had health insurance premiums that came in quite a lot lower 2 years ago from what they were predicted to be. So that money is also sitting in the reserve account. But we don't include that in the percentage because our percentage increase every year is based on the budget amount. So if we added that $120,000, it would skew the amount of the percentage that would have to be increased each year. Economic trends. When we look at all of the things that have been going on in our city, as you can see, we've done a tremendous job of bringing in single-family permits. Last year was certainly no exception, and in spite of COVID, we had a lot of single-family construction, and it's continuing. And the building department has a full-time job just trying to keep up with issuing building permits and doing the routine inspections that they must do. A couple of the commercial buildings that went up last year included the Harbor Social Project and also the assisted living project that has just begun down on 41 in front of the Seminole Lakes entrance. So those were two of the commercial buildings that were started or completed in 2020 and will continue being completed this year. And also, when you look at commercial build-outs, there were 7 of those, and just a couple to name a couple for you. The Peace River Veterinary building also had an addition on it, and Jersey Mike's did a build-out, and then we also had the Turtle Bay Cafe, which is going to be opened shortly in Fisherman's Village. So let's talk first about the accomplishments we made in 2020. All of the city council members are part of committees and boards that we go to the meetings for every month. In addition to our city council meetings, we all attend numerous meetings throughout the month. One of my tasks as a board member of the city council is I go to the MPO meetings, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We work very closely with the FDOT, and we work together on infrastructure improvements for highways and all the roadways that FDOT controls. And so one of the things that we got done in the last year was to get signage on the interstate for the Military Heritage Museum and the Vietnam Wall. It was a very, very big deal, and it took a long time. And one of my colleagues is Stephen R. Deutsch, and he's nodding his head. It took a long time to get those signs up. And when we did get the sign up, we had to have them move it, which was a whole act of Congress later. But that's one of the things that we do collaboratively with the FDOT and MPO. And also, FDOT is working with the city to develop what they're calling the Corridor Vision Plan. And the Corridor Vision Plan is all of the things that they plan to do for infrastructure improvements on the 41 corridor that runs through the city of Punta Gorda. Last year, we wrote a letter to all the homeowners associations, and they all responded to us, and they all gave us their input on what they would like to see in their part of 41 as it passes through the city. That was also an FDOT project, and we worked very closely with them, and they're actually listening, and they've made some modifications to what they originally thought they were going to do. So those kinds of things are very important. We do a tremendous amount of collaborative projects with all kinds of municipality groups, whether it's politically speaking, which is the MPO, which is also a Sunshine Committee. We also have all kinds of committees that all the other council members attend, and we work very closely with the veterans organizations. John Miller and Jaha Cummings are now going to the Veterans Council meetings. We have a lot of different organizations that we all attend meetings for each year. One of the projects we did some renovation for last year was the Veterans Park over in front of the Laishley Park. And Veterans Park is where the Vietnam Memorial Wall is. We did quite a lot of extensive renovations there, and we continue to do projects over there. We still have to put the commemorative paver bricks back in, which we're hoping to have done by no later than Memorial Day. And we also plan to put an additional flagpole for the new Space Force to add to the other 5 that are there already for the different military branches. Another project that was completed in 2020 was the Buckley's Pass. For all those who are boaters in PGI, you probably know a lot about this. And Buckley's Pass was a project that was about 20 years in the making, a big citizen initiative. And we had a lot of residents provide input, and we had quite a lot of public engagement to get that project done. It was a long time coming, and we finally got that done and under budget in 2020. So the boaters are very happy about that. Another project that was just completed in June of last year was our brand new reverse osmosis water treatment plant. That was also another collaborative project. We worked very closely with Swift Mud and the county and other entities to get that plant developed. And Swift Mud cooperated with us by 50% funding for that project. So that was a very big deal. And it has tremendously, tremendously impacted the quality of water since it went live in June. We began a project for the Ponce de Leon repairs at our park, and right now we're finishing up the completion of new seawalls, and they'll be working on pier replacement and the dock replacement after this. We are using funds from the sale of the Fisherman's Village land property to pay for this, and that project is anticipated to be completed as far as the seawall repairs by the end of February. Another project we've been working on for the last several years and will continue to work on is swale drainage improvements throughout the city. We have a lot of properties that are in areas where there's low-lying spots of land that end up having a lot of water pooling when we get major storms in the area. And so City Council voted to put in place part of our budget to help pay for swale drainage improvements, and we have a company that does that for us. And we started out with $500,000 a year in our budget to pay for that. I'm happy to say that we keep knocking that down a little bit every year, and this year we have budgeted $300,000 to keep that project going. But it has made a tremendous difference in the way we are able to maintain our properties where there is swale drainage issues. A thing we did last year was something that has to be done every so often, and that is a utility rate study. We hadn't raised our utility rates for quite some time, and so that was necessary to do last year. We also haven't done miscellaneous service charges review for quite a long time. It was almost 20 years. So as a result of the study, we ended up having to increase a very small amount for our water and sewer bills, which is to include current and all future projects that we see on the horizon. We'll be doing some other things at the water plant and also the wastewater plant, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So that was something that we had to do, and it had been a long time coming, so we completed that. Now you all know, and thankfully everyone in the county supported the renewal of the 1% sales tax. I won't go through these individually, but this is a list of some of the projects that we're going to be working on starting in 2021, and it's a 6-year cycle. So we'll be working on a lot of different things, and the number one priority on our list this year is going to be the City Hall restoration. Our historic City Hall is in very bad disrepair, and we need to really, really fix it up so that it is here for a long term. That is one of our beautiful assets in the city, and we want to make sure that we are able to keep it there for a long time in the future. So part of that will require us relocating the employees that work in that building. We're going to be building a new city council chamber at that time. The completely new chamber will be much larger so we can accommodate all the people that come to our meetings. We do get a pretty big crowd at some of our meetings. And so that's one of our big projects for this year. And we also moved up on the project list sidewalks on Henry Street between Shreve and 41. That's a public safety issue, and we voted a couple of weeks ago to put that on the front burner as well. So where do we go from here? Of course, we want to keep our small town charm and character, and that's all about what we do when we make decisions for the city. One of the big projects we've been working on for a couple of years is the Citywide master plan. And the master plan was received last year from our consultants. We accepted the plan, and now we are pulling out pieces of it that we want to move forward and actually execute. So part of that will be our updates to our land development regulations as well as our comprehensive plan, and they kind of go hand in hand. So part of the land development regulation updates will include transitioning into what is called form-based codes. And by that we mean we can control what the actual end result of an architecture of a building is going to look like on our streetscape. We can look at all the different architectural things that they can add to a building so that it doesn't look like a big square block building. And we'll have a little bit more ability to give guidance to developers who want to come into the city to build projects. So that's a very big deal as well. We already talked about the City Hall restoration project. That is going to be paid for by the 1% sales tax funds. So it is a very, very important project, that 1% sales tax. It has funded over $40 million in infrastructure improvements for us since 1984 when it first started. So that's a really, really important program for all of us. And not only the city, but the county. The county is able to build a lot of fire stations and sheriff department buildings and all the different infrastructure improvements that have to be done at the county level as well. So another one of the projects we're working on this year is something in conjunction with FP&L, and we're going to be adding decorative lighting on the east side of town in the historic district. We have a number of streets over there that don't really have a lot of good public safety features, and so we're working very closely with FP&L, and they're going to be doing the installation. So that'll be a project that'll be starting in 2021, and we hope as early as maybe next month. Gilchrist Park has been a work in progress for the last several years. and we're continuing to do our improvements there. During 2020, we actually resurfaced the tennis courts, the pickleball courts, and the basketball court. And now we're at the point where we have to continue doing the parking enhancements at the west end of the park. So we're working very closely with the engineering firm to do the final development and architectural design of that. And we'll hopefully get that started fairly soon. And that is also funded by sales tax funds. We think maybe midsummer will be the beginning of the construction for that. Laishley Park. A couple of years ago, we had to remove the old playground equipment that was there because it was in very bad disrepair and we felt it was not safe for the kids. So it was removed, and we've had a little bit of a challenge trying to find a contractor that actually wanted to take on this project. But we are now in the engineering and design phases with a company that's going to provide us with some concept plans. And this diagram at the top is just one sample of what could happen there. We're looking to do a lot more interactive activities there, along with the interactive fountain that currently is there, and new playground equipment. So that's going to be really nice when it's completed. And that comes out of our CRA fund. Throughout the city, we're doing a number of ADA accessibility enhancements all over the city, wherever it pertains to parks that we own or city properties that we own. We are required by federal law to do ADA accessibility enhancements, and that's what we're working on all the time. And we have a number of different projects that we're working on with ADA. City Hall buildings have been on the front burner for that project for the last year. The nature park is another one of those. While we have a beautiful park that is staffed by volunteers, our wonderful volunteer group, the Green Thumbs, keep coming to us with all these great ideas. And what we found is our pier and our entrance areas require some ADA ramps so that people can get into the park who require ADA accessibility. So that's another one of those projects that will be paid for by the sales tax. And the next three slides are actually what we call complete street programs. In the city center area, we have several areas that require more public safety effort. And so we're going to be putting sidewalks and a bike path on the airport road between 41 and 41 and Cooper Street. And that will be started very early in 2021. They're working on the finishing up of the design plans for that right now. Also paid for by sales tax. And the next one is on Shreve Street. We're going to be putting in lighting on the path that is already there. And then in 2025, we're going to widen that sidewalk path, and we're going to make it a little more easy for both pedestrians and bicyclists to use that path. Paid for by sales tax funds. And then Virginia Avenue. You are probably all familiar with the area in front of where Manatee's Pizza and the Ice House Pub are. It's kind of a hodgepodge. People park anywhere and everywhere they find an open space right now. And we're going to make that a little more organized, as it's one of the entranceways to our city, so we want to make it look nicer. So what we're doing is we're going to redesign the area to include angled-in parking, and we're going to have to do a little bit of a realignment of the road there so that we can accommodate that. So city staff will be meeting with the property owners over there to make sure that we have all of the efforts in as far as right-of-way all communicated clearly to the property owners over there. And that is sales tax funds. That project was started in 2020 because we had funds that were still in the last 6-year cycle of the sales fund program. I talked earlier about sidewalk improvements. So we're going to be putting sidewalks in on Shreve Street between Shreve Street, sorry, Henry Street, between Shreve and 41. That's going to be the one that we're pushing forward first. And then we are also going to be putting sidewalks on William Street, and that will be connecting them to the 41 corridor. It is basically going to be allow people who also need ADA accessibility to get up to where the shopping areas are. So that is one of the projects that we've started working on with that citizen-driven initiative. We had citizens that wrote to us and wanted us to take a look at that. So it'll be another one of those public safety issues. We had, as everybody knows, we had over 10 miles of seawalls fail after Hurricane Irma, and we worked very closely with FEMA to get that project completed in 18 months which is kind of unheard of. If you look at the fact that 10 miles of seawalls basically means we put up a seawall from Home Depot in Punta Gorda all the way up to Murdoch in 18 months. It's kind of ridiculously fast. But we got that done, and as part of what they decided, FEMA asked us if we would put riprap in front of the seawalls to give the seawall panels additional stability. And we found out that when we went through that process with FEMA, that we don't have a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers for us to go forward with that. So that means we have to file with the Army Corps of Engineers to get the permit revised. And of course, the Army Corps has to talk to the National Marine Fisheries, and now we're waiting on them to render an opinion because they want to protect the sawfish. So it's one of those stand around and wait projects. It's, you know, when you get involved in all the different federal entities, it takes a little bit of time to get that done. But we will be putting riprap in front of all the new seawall panels that were put up from Hurricane Irma failures. A couple of the things relating to the burn store aisles and PGI. We are looking at some serious numbers in our residential build out in both communities. And because both communities are waterfront communities and there's a lot of boaters that go in and out, we do a lot of seawall replacement each year. And in burn store aisles, when they took the lock out, they left the bottom half of the lock structure in place. And so in order for us to get the big, huge barge in there to do seawall replacement, we're going to have that removed at some point. So that will be on the future projects list for burnt store aisles, and that will be paid for out of the Burnt Store Aisles Canal Assessment District funds. And then also in PGI, believe it or not, PGI is at just about 93% build out right now. And so it's really happening quickly, a lot quicker than we actually anticipated that it would. So when we run out of staging areas, which we're using the vacant lots for right now in some cases, we're going to have to build a channel where we can actually have the barge come in and dock itself at night so they can leave it off of people's properties. So the barge channel will be eventually dredged, probably sometime in the next 5 years, and it'll be parallel to the Colony Point Road on the south end of Colony Point. And that is something that's on the not immediate project list, but it will be done sometime in the next few years. And that is something that we have to do so that we don't have to have the barge traveling to a stationary point outside of the aisles every time they want to do a seawall replacement. But we can also use that as a staging area. There's property adjacent to that the city owns, so we'll be able to use that as a staging area to store seawall panels and supplies. Another one of the things we're going to be looking at going forward is our wastewater treatment plant improvement and expansion. Every so many years, we have to take a look at our capacity levels, and there is a report that's issued, and when we reach 75% capacity for our usage at the facility, then we have to take a look at how we're going to improve that for the future. So we're at the point where we're looking at how to expand it going forward. We also have to renew our lease. We currently lease that property from the Fish and Wildlife Commission. So we're working on the renewal of the lease, and we're going to be doing some expansion out there to accommodate both current and future needs for the wastewater treatment plant. Another one of those projects that is kind of on, not the front burner, but it's starting to surface, is septic to sewer conversion. You probably all have heard about the fact that on a federal level and a state level, there are a lot of properties that are currently on septic systems and that are waterfront in particular. We have a lot of waterfront properties in the county that are on septic systems. And what we're going to try to do for the long term is to move some of those properties into sewer systems going forward. And Charlotte Park has 3 distinctively different areas within Charlotte Park, and that'll be the first 3 sections that we're going to be looking at doing septic to sewer conversion. So we have started the process. We hired a firm that will represent the city, and we'll decide with their preliminary report that they're starting to work on for us. We just approved this 2 weeks ago. They're going to work on an engineering report to decide which type of system should be implemented for those properties. And then at that point, we'll decide from a cost standpoint if it's feasible to go forward and continue planning and move them to sewer. So that's a very big project. There will be a lot of citizen engagement on that because we aren't going to make a decision of that caliber without input from the residents that it will affect, because that'll be a fairly substantial assessment for those properties. And finally, COVID. You know, everybody knows about COVID. Unfortunately, it's here and it's not going away. There's a lot of businesses in the community that have suffered a lot from this, and we've had a lot of businesses just in the last couple of weeks who have had outbreaks. So it's very unfortunate. We're hoping that everybody survives this, and we're working very closely with all of our state and federal officials to try to get us more vaccines. That's really a big deal right now. So the city manager and I wrote a letter to the governor a couple of weeks ago. I know the county wrote one as well. And then we had all of the federal elected officials for Florida, which included Greg Steube and Marco Rubio and Rick Scott and several of the other representatives. They all wrote a letter to the governor. And then Greg Steube wrote another letter to the governor just yesterday, really begging for more vaccines. We really need to get vaccines here. And the process so far has not been working all that well. And I know everybody's frustration. I see all the posts on Facebook every day, so I do know that everybody's frustration is uniformly across the board. Everybody's really, really concerned about this. So we're really hoping that we're going to start getting vaccines into the community and get people vaccinated and keep people safe. And thank you again for the chamber working with us on all of the stuff that we've had to do as a city. I know that you know, putting the mask ordinance in place wasn't a pleasure to do for all of us. We had a lot of discussion and a lot of feedback from residents and businesses about it, but we did feel that it was the best thing we could do for all of the people in the community. And we thank the chamber for working with us on getting the word out to all the businesses. And thank you all for cooperating with the mask ordinance. It's here for a while, so we want to make sure everybody is as safe as we can possibly keep them. And that's all I have. The end.